So last night I decided it would be a great idea to get warm and cozy with my heated blanket and just chill and read and live my best life. It was inspired by Sean from Past Storytime, just because she has been using her heated blanket a lot recently, and I haven't pulled mine out yet this year. So anyway, so I started The Red Parts by Maggie Nelson, which is basically about the murder of her aunt and about her kind of investigating it a little bit and trying to figure out more about it while also writing a book of poetry about the whole situation. She never knew her aunt because her aunt passed away at age 23, I think, was murdered at age 23 or 25, I think 23. And so the author was not even born yet. But the murder of her aunt has always kind of just been like omnipresent in her life. Like, it's just always there. And it's very cool, right? This book is really good. And not the main character, it's literally nonfiction. The woman who was murdered, she was going to school at U of M, University of Michigan, when she was murdered, but she's actually from Muskegon, Michigan, which is where I'm living, like, at this very moment. So that was so cool. But what's really cool, I'll tell you in a second, because I should probably stir my oatmeal. Okay, I'm back. So what's really cool is this is all coming together for me. Like, I am just like, oh my gosh, I read a book last year that was also about this murder. Like, how cool is it about how my books kind of communicate with each other and how things I've read about in the past kind of resurface in other books? Well, things kept getting more and more familiar, and I realized that I have actually already read this book, but with a different cover. Good morning, Lyra. What you doing? You look so cute. Are you the cutest? Okay, so I think I'm going to do something that One Book One Review mentions, and that's basically that she kind of keeps track of when books come in, so that she's looking not at like a certain number of books in her TBR, but more like shelf life and like how long they've been on her shelf. And so I need a new nonfiction book now that I've clearly already previously read the one that I had selected, because I always have at least one fiction, one nonfiction going at the same time. So I went on my story graph and I just looked at what have I added most recently that is nonfiction to my story graph. And then I was going to look at like just like the most recent ones to figure out which one I'm most interested in. But the one that is most recent on here is actually the one I want to read the most, so it's perfectly fine. This is called The Open Air Life, and it's by Linda Ackerson McGurk. I actually met her and I have a whole story on it, but I need to go to work and I'm not done eating breakfast, so I will save that story for later. Hey everyone. Okay, so I realized I left you hanging this morning when I was talking about that book by Linda Ackerson McGurk, and I said I had a bunch of stories to tell about it, but I think I'm just going to wait and kind of discuss it along the way as I am reading it. What I wanted to chat with you about now, as my dinner is in the oven, is basically this my favorites sort of thing. So we talked about Heather's favorite books that I also own, and then we talked about Sarah, and then we get to the mother lode with Didi. So I will link to Didi below. But I have been following her for years and years and years, starting from the beginning when she was Frenchie D, I think. And I think that my first book ever that she talked about, like the first video that I remember watching, I think it was about Where'd You Go, Bernadette, or something like that. But I actually went back and found it one time. I was like, dang, like I have been following her for so long. Like, she's one of the originals of BookTube, I feel like. But anyway, so here's the thing, right? Sarah, I love. Heather, I love. Didi, I love. But she's like a BookTube goddess. So just like, not just like, hey, you're my friend. It's like, starstruck. Didi, you are amazing. So I have just like one or two more books that she has raved about. And I would say my favorite thing about getting to know her a little bit more is that like she introduces me to so many books I've never heard of in my life, so many authors I've never heard of in my life, and they end up just absolutely being like some of my favorites. Like Leonard Pitts Jr., number one fangirl. Maybe not number one, but I love him now. So anyway, I will show you a few more books that she has said are some of her favorites. And I'm actually realizing right now that Leonard Pitts Jr.'s, I don't know what it's called, but his one about enslaved people, I'm pretty sure. That one I still have not read, and then I have a bunch of his nonfiction. So I think those are not in the pile because I didn't think that she explicitly said they were her favorites in a favorites video, but like I know that she loves him, so I should really include those as well. Anyway, a lot of these I have heard of before, but some are slightly more obscure or at least like unknown to me. So we have Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. Everyone knows her. This is not a new book. I just haven't read it yet. Citizen by Claudia Rankin. How to Be Black by Baratunde Thurston. My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Talent. This one I heard was super intense and I need to like be in like basically a depressing mood to be able to like get through this. I heard it's intense. We will see. I already have read and loved Attica Locke, and it was actually someone else that introduced her to me for the first time, but I have not read Heaven My Home yet. I think this is the second book of like the Darren Matthews book. The first one was Bluebird, and it was amazing. And I also read another one, gosh, I feel like I should remember the names of books better. I think it was like The Cutting Season or something. It took place on a plantation that had been like basically morphed into like a tourist spot, but also like a venue. Anyway, Heavy by Kesey Lehman. This is one that I've never heard of before her. It's called In West Mills, and it's by Deshawn Charles Winslow. Has anyone read this? Like, I just haven't heard of it before, and basically that pretty much guarantees it's going to be amazing because that's how I roll with her. A Brief History of 7 Killings. I'm pretty sure next year might be like the book or the year of the chunkers or something, because this book is huge and I'm so intimidated by big books. This is another book I haven't heard of before. Some Sing, Some Cry, another kind of chunky one. Yeah. And then Lighthead, this is a book of poetry by Terrence Hayes. I don't read poetry very often at all. Daughters of the Stone. This one, if you have ever read that Diverse Spines book, Didi kind of blurbs about this book in there. And it's by Dalma Leos Figueroa. She went to our book club one time. Well, she didn't go to it. Like, we interviewed her and stuff like that for her second book, A Woman of Endurance, which is phenomenal. So I really want to go back and read this one. This is kind of like, as far as I understand, like the stories are connected between A Woman of Endurance and this book, but this one like happens first or something. Yeah, I think they're connected but can be read separately. Okay, this next one. Basically, Didi has told me for a long time I need to read this. And also Didi tends to read a lot of literary fiction, and I also love literary fiction. Like, if you look at my favorites for this year, which you haven't yet because I haven't posted it yet, ones that have stuck with me and that have made my favorites list are often literary fiction, because they're the ones that have the big feelings, the big discussions, the big thoughts, all that sort of stuff. This one I think is slightly more plot driven than what Didi usually reads, and it is The Yellow Wife, which she said she read in like one sitting, so I'm here for that. Nonfiction, Somebody's Daughter. This one would actually be really good on audiobook, I feel like, if it was read by the author, because I always love it when memoirs are read by the author. And then this last one is not one that she has mentioned as one of her favorites, but Didi also hosts a podcast, and what I would love to do is to go back and like look at the first episode of the podcast, see what book she read with her co-host, and read that book and then go back and listen to the podcast episode. But I don't know if it was the first episode or one soonish. I don't really remember where it was in the order, but it's The Blacker the Berry, and this book was super, super cheap. So I added it to the mix. So yeah, Didi just makes me buy books. That's the problem. Anyway, I think that I am going to put these books away, and then I have a little bit of time before my dinner is done. I'm just baking a sweet potato, and I like having it with like this chipotle sauce or whatever. But I am way behind on my advent calendar. It's the 5th day of December, as you know, and I have done one day. So I think I might work on that a little bit, like before, during, and after dinner. I had to look at the solution again for day 2 of my advent calendar, even though I know it's December 5, I'm just behind. And it wasn't necessarily that I 100% didn't understand what to do. It was that there was something spatial and it was just not making sense to me spatially. And I ended up destroying something that I think was supposed to be like folded together neatly. So I'm going to try day 3 after I'm done eating dinner and taking a brief break because this is stressful. And we'll see if I can do day 3 without reading the solution.